Canada's chief medical officer believes official discussion for decriminalization of all drugs should begin as soon as possible.
Here's a summary of the article.
Ottawa. Canada's chief health officer says Canadians should be seized with the crisis of rising deaths from opioid use, and she suggests decriminalizing hard drugs should be part of the discussion to find solutions. Dr. Theresa Tam says several provinces, including British Columbia, Ontario and Alberta, are seeing concerning spikes in overdose deaths since the COVID-19 pandemic began. Tam says increasing access to a safer supply of drugs and building more supervised consumption sites are among the critical steps needed to reduce opioid deaths. She also says all approaches must be considered, including moving toward a societal discussion on decriminalization. Several officials and groups have called on the federal government to decriminalize hard drugs to address this opioid crisis, including the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police and BC's Premier and Provincial Health Officer. Tam said Friday that jurisdictions cannot arrest their way out of this problem, and applauded a recent directive by the Independent Public Prosecution Office instructing federal prosecutors to only go after the most serious drug possession offences that raise public safety concerns. Health Minister Patty Hajdu has said there is no silver bullet to solve the opioid crisis and that a suite of tools is needed to fully tackle the problem, but she has heard the calls for decriminalization and it's something government is deliberating.
This post received a score of 38,000, with an upvote ratio of 94%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
Be like Portugal.
Did it work in Portugal?
Quite well in fact. Wikipedia link, skip to observations.
Turns out, not treating people with addictions like subhumans and ruining their lives over it, or looking at it as some kind of moral failure they should be shamed for, and actually trying to look at the underlying reason why a person turned to drugs in the first place in order to help them get their lives together at their own pace works pretty well. Who could have guessed the answer wasn't mass incarceration?
The drug manufacturer lied, told doctors and pharmacists you could prescribe high doses with very little chance of addiction. When they realized something wasn't right, they weren't forthcoming. Once it couldn't be denied any longer, they didn't deal with all the people that were already addicted. They made a version that was more difficult to inject, but did nothing for the people now suffering with substance use disorder.
Not to defend pharma, but doctors should also be smart enough to know that opiates gonna be opiates. They deserve blame too for overprescribing shit they should very well know is addictive.
Fact is, when you look at basically every new class of drug introduced since mid-century, they were pretty much all based on false claims. Turns out benzos and alcohol are the only two drugs on Earth that can literally kill you in withdrawal by causing seizures and cardiac arrest. It's a pretty dirty business, and IMO the dirtiest secret of all is the fact that the vast majority of R&D for new drugs, which is the supposed reason why drug companies should be paid so handsomely for their drugs, is in fact funded by governments to begin with. They get paid to develop drugs, get paid to sell the drugs, and in the case of Purdue Pharma, they get paid again when they sell you the drugs that are supposed to cure your addiction to the other drugs they sold you.
Pharmacy tech 5 years. Couldn't agree more. It's crazy to me that the world has not yet collectively realized that at least 90% of the problems created by drug use are a direct function of their illegality.
Who has benefited from these drugs being illegal? Billions upon billions of dollars to criminal organizations and to government agencies and the jail and legal system. Criminal organizations have been making a killing on cannabis for decades. It's a huge source of revenue. They'll still have sources of money if drugs are legalized, but it will be a big loss.
I don't think they're taking about legalizing all drugs, just decriminalization of consumption. Likely the black market will still exist.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.